I'm Tracy Burt of the Treasure Box Club. This month I have some little tips for you for using your stamp included in this month's kit. One of the questions I'm most often asked about stamping is which type of ink to use. There are several different types. We're just looking at the main ones here. We've got dye ink pad, which is probably too small to see on the video, but it's DYE ink. And it's the easiest to stamp with because it dries really fast which also means you have to stamp really fast. After you ink up your stamp, you need to go ahead and stamp. You can't ink it up, let it set, and then stamp a couple of minutes later because your ink's going to have dried in the meantime. The other type of ink is pigment ink, which stays wet a lot longer. It's a little bit thicker of an ink, to me, is how it feels. And it does take a while to dry, which if you're not a really fast stamper, you might prefer because you can ink up your stamp and then take your time for figuring out where to stamp it, and then it'll still be good. But that also means it's going to take longer to dry once you do stamp it, so you need to be prepared either to heat set it or to set your project aside and wait for it to dry. Now, my favorite ink to use is the Distress ink by Tim Holtz. I love the colors. It's technically a dye ink, but it does take a little longer to dry than most dye inks. But these are what I work with. I'm sure you've noticed on the instructions when it tells you what color ink I've used. It's one of these. However, if you have a different brand of ink you like to use, that's totally fine. It's really whichever kind of ink you want to use. Now with acrylic stamps, you'll notice it's just the stamp. There's no backing, and you can use any kind of mount you like. You can use an acrylic block, you can use the lid to your stamp pad. You know, really, if you don't have a stamp mount, that works fine. I particularly like this. I got it a long time ago. It's just easy to use, but really it doesn't matter what mount you use. The thing to keep in mind, though, is with acrylic stamps, you don't have the cushioning that you get with a traditional wood mount stamp. You've got the stamp and then the cushion behind it and then the block. Well, that's missing. So if you want to get the clearest image, you'll want to use something squishy behind it. I've got my mouse pad here, but you could use a magazine, something like that. Just to show you real quick the difference, I'm going to ink up my stamp and stamp without the mouse pad, and then do it again with, so you can see what that little bit of cushion does. And it just gets you a little bit a more crisp image. Now this stamp was made to look distressed anyway if you look at the stamp, so there's little lines going through it, but that's how the stamp was designed. But those are the differences, and that's what this does for you. A quick tip that I wanted to give you was for using your stamps after you've already placed the item to be stamped on the page. When I was working on page 9 here, I put this journaling block down after, you can see I inked it up with my Fired Brick Distress ink pad. But after I had it there, I thought the blue swirl would look really great on it, but I'd already had it set down and didn't want to pick it back up. So what you can do is just mask it with any kind of scrap paper and then ink up your stamp and hold it where your stamp there and stamp. And then you'll end up, oh look, there was still a little ink left even though I didn't truly re-ink it. You can see the overhang of your image will stamp on your scrap paper, and then you'll have a clean image without having to go through the hassle of taking your project back off the page, stamping it, and putting it back on. This saved me a lot of time working on the 8x8 album because I really wanted to see the items on the page first and see where the stamp would go before I stamped the image. But that is this month's quick tip. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you for next month.